MagMongoSlade. The post SummerSlam Smackdown is on the books, August the 11th, 2023. Things were furthered here. Things developed. Let's talk about it. No real news and notes to discuss, really. I guess we'll discuss rumors a little bit later. But I guess if there is one note, Chelsea Green has started doing sort of her own storyline on Twitter where she's interviewing people to be her new tag team partner. I don't think it works that way. They didn't mention the women's tag team titles at all on SmackDown. It's almost like they don't care. So if they don't care and I don't care, then we're good. So we start with the women's division, because what better way to start the show about something you actually don't care about, and have Charlotte Flair versus Asuka, a singles match that is born from the triple threat where Asuka spit mist in Charlotte's face and essentially cost her the title. And the match is good. It was a good match, but there was some shoddy spots in there. For instance, when they were doing the wrist locks and the tumbling and stuff like that, Asuka couldn't get her arms over Charlotte's head. So I guess Charlotte forgot to duck because Asuka is very short, and therefore it looked kind of crappy. Also, when they were exchanging forearms, Asuka just stopped and was just kind of like looking at Charlotte like, what am I supposed to do? And then Charlotte was like, come on! And then Asuka threw a punch and it looked crappy. But outside of those two spots, I think they work well together, you know. Mostly, I had fun with it. You know, Charlotte has been very athletic since she came back. I mean, doing a lot of more handsprings and, you know, stuff like this. She must have been watching NXT and saw all those young girls down there starting to do tumbling routines, and she was like, oh no, they coming for me. It's it's like when John Cena got to a certain point and all of a sudden he busts out a hurricanrana and everybody was like, wait a minute, what's that about? And it's like, well, clearly you're feeling the pressure. Right, you know, there's some people coming down the pike that's actually doing a little bit better than you. So Charlotte's been a little bit more athletic. Not to say that she wasn't athletic before, but she's starting to show it a lot more now. So this match, what frustrated me, of course, was disqualification. Io Sky and Bayley, they decided to interrupt this match for literally no reason and have Io drop kick both competitors at the same time and beat them up. And then they went no further. This was the last you saw of all of these people for the evening. Charlotte did not complain that she had the match won. Asuka didn't complain about what was going on. Bianca Belair did not appear, was mentioned, but did not appear. They didn't even say she was getting her knee checked on or nothing. She was just not there. And then we didn't see these people again for the rest of the night. Great building of storytelling here for your women's division. You have a match that does not involve the champion. The champion gets involved on her own volition, causes a disqualification, doesn't explain why, nobody cares why, really. Ruins a fairly decent match that was, you know, kind of something people were interested in, and that's how we start the show. My goodness. All the arguing about the women's division, seems Shawn Michaels is the only one with his head on his shoulders when it comes to these women's divisions, man. You could have easily said that tonight is not about Charlotte, it's not about Asuka, it's about Io, and that's why she did this. Or you could have just let the match end and then Io attack the winner or whatever the case may be. You could have did a promo letting us know how Bianca is doing. You could have done a promo backstage where Charlotte is frustrated because people keep running into her matches all of a sudden. And Asuka's furious because once again, Io is involved in her business and all this kind of stuff. They chose not to do any of that, but to just leave it right here. Okay. You don't care, and I don't care. Santos Escobar. He's backstage. He's feeling confident. Thinks he's got Austin Theory's number. And so apparently saying Austin Theory's name makes him appear. So he attacked him and then smashed his knee with a heavy box. And I was thinking, okay. Later, Santos Escobar is getting checked on backstage. He's medically cleared, but Adam Pearce wanted to make sure that he was mentally ready to do this. And of course, he wants to because he's a babyface. Austin Theory says that Santos Escobar is like toilet paper. When you look at him, he falls apart. To which I say, what kind of toilet paper are you using? What kind of toilet paper do you have that falls apart when it's looked at? I don't know. Maybe that's bad verbiage that he was that he was fed here. So then they start the match later in the show. Santos Escobar, he comes in heavily taped at the knee, and Austin Theory attacks him from behind during his entrance with a chop block. At that point, Santos Escobar is down. Austin Theory gets in the ring, says, well, guess I'm not having a title match tonight, and none of you people will get to see Austin Theory live. Boo. Adam Pearce, with his shiny bald head, decided, nope, you're going to defend the title, but against Rey Mysterio. Huh? So Rey Mysterio wrestles Austin Theory and wins the United States Championship. Huh? Okay, so let's break this thing down. They went through the trouble of having Santos Escobar pin Austin Theory to show you that Santos Escobar is probably in the pipeline to win the United States title. Then they had Santos Escobar beat Rey Mysterio. Now, here's the anchor that I'm thinking. Rey got knocked out in that match. You know, he got a severe whiplash or whatever, and he couldn't wrestle. All the dirt sheets are saying Santos Escobar was supposed to win that match by pinfall. But this decision to put the belt on Rey right now feels to me like Rey was supposed to win that match, and he didn't. So they have to backdoor their way into Rey getting into this match. So they wrote Santos Escobar to get injured on this show so that he would be taken out of the match and you could put Rey in it. Because there's no point in Santos Escobar winning a tournament that included Rey Mysterio to fight the United States champion, only for him to be taken out and for Rey to be put in it, if Rey wasn't supposed to win the tournament. All right? So clearly, it looks to me like Rey was supposed to win the tournament, but he didn't for shoot reasons. And so they backdoored this thing. If that's the case, okay, they did a good job of, you know, making it look seamless in some way. If it was supposed to be Santos Escobar who was supposed to win that match against Rey Mysterio, he's supposed to win by pinfall, and they still did this, then clearly Santos Escobar is going to turn heel, right? Because Rey stole his opportunity. This was supposed to have been his match. Now, surely you can blame Austin Theory for it, but Rey took advantage of this situation, and therefore Santos Escobar should turn heel. He should still be in pursuit of the United States title, right? Because we all agree that while Rey Mysterio winning the U.S. title is great, he doesn't need it. It really doesn't add much to his legacy. Surely you want to reward the LWO for selling tons of merchandise and, you know, making people very excited. But why give it to Rey? Why Rey? That's my question, you know. You could have gave it to Santos and it would have had the same effect. Giving it to Rey has to have a specific reason. All right. And I don't get it. Usually I would say poor Austin Theory, but I've been saying that since Triple H took over. Triple H has no idea what to do with Austin Theory. He's in that position where everybody thinks he's going to be a top guy, but I mean, it keeps getting bandied about in the locker room, and people are talking about it online because they've been talking about it the whole time. But when you look at the effects of everything that they've done, they had Austin Theory beat John Cena. I didn't even remember that he wrestled Edge, and until they mentioned it during commentary that he had wrestled, I guess, beat Edge. I'm like, oh my God. He had a great United States title run if you look at Cage Match and see how many matches he won. If you look at anything else, storylines, was the character actually elevated? No. It was awful. I'm glad they put a bullet in this United States title run. It was the shits. But that's not Austin Theory's fault. It's the booking's fault. They chose not to utilize him for weeks and weeks and weeks. They chose not to really engage in any storylines with him. And then his partnership with Pretty Deadly, that ended very quickly because one of the guys from Pretty Deadly got hurt. Of course, there's another guy in Pretty Deadly you could have used, but they chose not to do that. You could have also put him with somebody else, Grayson Waller. They chose not to do that. Instead, they decided, we're just going to have him lose to Santos, disappear, lose the Battle Royal to Santos, I believe, and then lose to Rey Mysterio, because that's how you book a young star. That's how young stars are built. They're built through having matches with guys and losing while they are a champion, by the way. Literally doesn't make... It made more sense when Vince was doing it, because at least Vince was lighting a fire under him and saying to him, like, you got to impress me. The point wasn't to win. The point was to impress Vince. Now, you're looking at him and you're saying, okay, he's walking around with the title. He's been a champion for almost 300 days, 250, somewhat 260 days or something. What can you honestly remember from that title run? He got buried by John Cena in a promo. He beat John Cena in a lackluster match. And that was it. That's it. And that's Triple H's push of Austin Theory. And he's been in control for over a year. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at this thing and saying it ain't good. But you might have a different... You might like your ice cream pickled flavored. And so I don't know what your taste is like. I know that for mine, this ain't working. This sucked. Sucks for Austin Theory, but it's Triple H's ball now. So he's doing what he wants. Also sucks for Karrion Kross. We had a Karrion Kross vignette earlier in the match. In the night, rather. This led to the Karrion Kross versus AJ Styles match. The match fell apart. AJ Styles does his moonsault into the Dragon Sleeper position. And Karrion Kross was too close. So, because Karrion Kross came too close, it looked sloppy. And then AJ tried to pick him up for some kind of suplex or whatever. But Karrion Kross was too heavy. Apparently, he didn't post quick enough. And so they both basically just fell over. And that has been on the rounds of Twitter for a while to show everybody that Karrion Kross is an absolute bum. And look, I'm not going to say the guy's a bum. I like Karrion Kross. I've always been a fan of Karrion Kross, but it's not looking good. It's one thing to botch a suplex or something like that. Maybe there's some miscommunication. But it's a spot literally that AJ does in every single match that he's in. You got to know that thing's coming. You got to know your positioning on that. That sucked. But then Miyam launches Scarlett. She went skipping across that damn announce table like if you'd have skid a rock across a still lake. It was hilarious. And then Styles clash, 1, 2, 3. AJ Styles wins again. So Karrion Kross pursues AJ Styles for, 2 months? Beating him 0 times. 0 times. He beat him 0 times. I don't know what the point of bringing Karrion Kross back was. I think he's been back a year now, and I failed to really grasp what the purpose of bringing him back was. He has made 0 pay-per-views. I don't think he's wrestled on a single pay-per-view other than maybe Royal Rumble since he came back. He didn't wrestle at WrestleMania. He didn't wrestle at this SummerSlam or the last. Did he wrestle at Survivor Series? I don't think so. What pay-per-view has he shown up at? He hasn't shown up on any pay-per-views. He barely wrestles on TV, and when he does, it's 50-50. You don't know whether he's going to win or lose. He doesn't look dominant. He doesn't look scary. He's not interesting in terms of promo or storyline or anything. What the fuck was the point of bringing this guy into this company? What was the purpose? Like, I don't get it. Like, that's the thing that's really sticking in my craws. I don't get it. Are we saying that he's paying his dues? Or is that what we're saying? that, he's going through all this with Nakamura and Styles, these kind of middling mid-carders, these guys who are kind of, I don't want to say AJ Styles is over the hill, but clearly AJ Styles is not going to main event WrestleMania. He's not going to main event a pay-per-view anytime soon. He's not wrestling for the world title anytime soon. You could have had Karrion Kross beat him. Styles is on the downslide. Kross should be on the upslide. It would have been a perfect little stepping stone feud to have. But instead, they did the complete opposite. You think AJ Styles is the one that just got signed and then just brought in because he's pitting the beats on Karrion Kross, even with the botched spot. Even if you want to say, oh, Karrion Kross is a bum, he botched the spot. So what? He should be on the upside. Styles is on the downslide. What's going on here? What is who do you have to talk to get an answer of why Karrion Kross was hired? Like, what do you see in him that you thought he was a good investment? But you say to yourself, we'll keep him around for a year, but we're just going to have AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura wipe their feet on him. Because that doesn't make him look good to lose to, Nakamura's an also ran. Nobody believes that he's a really logical contender for the world title on Raw. Nobody believes that. And AJ Styles is not in any position to wrestle Roman Reigns. Now, would people accept that if that was to happen? Yes. But they know it's not happening because Roman Reigns is still doing stuff with the Usos. So he's not going anywhere. What are we doing here with Karrion Kross? If you want to say, let's say, well, Reigns is the top heel. Kross can't be the top heel because Reigns is the top heel. All right, fair enough. But you still could be doing something. You still need other attractions. You still need other people that, okay, maybe Reigns is not beatable, but somebody else is. Okay, if Kross has to be that guy, he should at least look dominant for the most part. The only person he can beat is Carl Anderson. That doesn't make him look good. That doesn't imbue anybody with any fear or any intimidation or any concern that a feud with Karrion Kross is going to mean anything. It's shitty. So, poor Karrion Kross. I mean, it is what it is, bro. But my question is, where does AJ Styles go? Okay, so he beat Karrion Kross. He's kind of been a hamster on a wheel for several weeks now. He beat Karrion Kross. What's next? I know they teased a feud between the Brawling Brutes and the OC. That seems to have been dropped out of nowhere, and we're not going further with that because Sheamus is going to be wrestling Edge. So Edge comes out there, and it's a surprise, and a nice surprise, a welcome surprise. And he talks about wanting to wrestle on the 25th anniversary show, and he wants to wrestle somebody he's never wrestled before. And that person is Sheamus. So he goes through the story of falling down on the bike trip with Sheamus, and that led him to believe that if he could take that bump, then he could wrestle again. Then he adds that Sheamus actually helped him train for his big return, and that they've been in the same company for years and years and never wrestled against each other. So he wants to have a match with Sheamus. Sheamus comes out there with the Brawling Brutes. He talks about how Edge is his good buddy. Edge is the guy who talked to him when nobody else would and inspired him, that's the word I was looking for, to continue chasing his wrestling dream so he would not be there without Edge. And they agreed to the match next week. It was a heartwarming babyface versus babyface feud with the two guys ribbing each other. Sheamus showing Edge's bare ass with a bruise. Edge showing Sheamus sitting on his daughter's bike with a little helmet on and everything. And I feel that the heel turn for Sheamus is coming. The match is going to be good. These two guys, I just got a feeling that they're going to work very well together. The fact that they actually set this match up is what makes me think that the feud is going to begin here. Apparently Roman Reigns got injured. Also, Brock Lesnar got injured at SummerSlam. So they're going to need somebody to main event Payback. They're going to need somebody to be the attraction for Payback. And Edge being that guy is probably for the best. Edge is is a guy who, like AJ Styles, much nearer to the end of his career than is to the beginning. He's basically doing victory laps. He's doing side missions. He's wrestling people he's never wrestled before. Some of whom are his friends or people that he looked up to or that he's always wanted to wrestle, and Sheamus is one of those guys. I'm thinking they're going to do it more than once. So I'm thinking they're probably going to do a Sheamus heel turn on SmackDown next week, which is going to lead to the payback match in which Edge and Sheamus will do it again, and this time on pay-per-view, because they need a special attraction for that show, because Roman's not going to be there apparently. Brock's not going to be there. Cody will be there, but we have no idea who he's going to be against. And we're not sure if the women are going to appear at all, or if there's going to be a tag team championship at all. The United States title is on Rey Mysterio, so, and Gunther will probably be there, more than likely. So you need something to build on the payback show. So I'm guessing they're going to do Sheamus versus Edge. And I'm okay with that, because Sheamus has been belly aching about, Roman Reigns is only over because they put so much time into it. And if they give everybody else the same time, they probably would be over too. It's not true, but, part of what makes the bloodline engaging is knowing the relationships between those two characters, which is what they did here, is they established the relationship between Sheamus and Edge, which is why I believe that Sheamus is going to turn heel here. Because you establish that they're friends. You establish that Edge is, one of Sheamus's inspirations. You're established that, Sheamus is sort of spinning his wheels right now. He doesn't really have much else going on. So a lengthy feud with Edge, and Edge likes to work feuds that are pretty lengthy, might actually be pretty good for the entire Brawling Brutes fam. Granted that Ridge Holland doesn't get to put his hands on Edge, because I don't want that. So I'm cool with that. As long as Sheamus turns heel at the end, I'm cool with it. If it's just going to be a match, Edge just wins the match and that's it, then fuck this. You got to have something that builds something up. And how do you guys feel about Edge being used for special events like SmackDown and stuff? Like, you would think that if a guy is going to be used as a special attraction, it wouldn't be for TV. It would be for events, big events, pay-per-view events. But Edge only wrestling on SmackDown and not wrestling at any pay-per-views or building up to any matches on pay-per-view seems a bit weird. But that's just me. But Sheamus and Edge was fun. I liked the segment. The match is going to be interesting, and I'm glad they actually built it up. So that's a positive. If you were interested in LA Knight, then you shouldn't blink, because he wasn't out there very long. LA Knight defeated Top Dollar. This match featured a Michael Cole rap that was so bad that I just wish hip-hop was never created. It wasn't even really a rap, and to which a lot of people don't really rap. They just say things that supposedly rhyme, and this really didn't even rhyme. Anyway, the match with Flop Dollar was about 4 minutes maybe, and then LA Knight wins. He cuts a promo saying that no matter if you're awesome, it only matters who game it is, or something to that effect. So everybody got to chant, yeah, and that was pretty much it. All right, so Lashley, he is chilling with the Street Profits. He says that he looks at the two of them, and he doesn't see quite untapped potential, because they've done a little bit. But the job is unfinished. This was Montez Ford, and they're talking about power, control of the championships, and that it's time for some new blood to take over. So they're celebrating their alliance. All right. I would have liked for them to take the next step here. It seemed like a step backwards. They're in a dark room, clapping and drinking champagne. All right. As long as they're not, on TV, losing and getting kicked in the balls and stuff. All right. So let's get into the bloodline. So Roman Reigns, he comes out there, he chews up a lot of scenery. Like, he literally stands there for maybe a minute and a half without saying anything. This is on top of his 3-minute intro. Then he wants to know where Jimmy is. Paul, oh, my tribal chief, Jimmy is quite salty with me. And he doesn't really understand why. So Jimmy comes out there, and Roman is ecstatic. says that Jimmy can have whatever he wants. Name your price. You want a car? You want a boat? No. You want a yacht? Whatever you want, you got it. Jimmy says he don't want anything from Roman. What he did got nothing to do with Roman. Roman's like, oh, okay, you don't want any material possessions. So what about power? You want to be the right-hand man, Jimmy Uso? And Jimmy's like, oh, man, I don't want that. Not really. So Jay comes out, and Jay kind of, confronts Jimmy. Jay is ready to throw 37 years down the drain if Jimmy don't have a good explanation of why he did what he did. So then we get to Jimmy's explanation. His explanation is that he did it because he loves Jay and he doesn't want Jay to end up like Roman. That it's not just that, what's going to happen to the Usos. He slid that in there. But he also said, if you would have inherited some kind of power, you would have ended up like him. And I would not be able to sleep or live with myself if I let that happen to you. And let's stop right here because a lot of people were disappointed in this explanation when it's really the only one that makes sense. The only explanation that makes sense really is that Jimmy was trying to keep Jay pure, keeping him from the corrupting force of being the tribal chief and all this kind of stuff. And I get it. They said tribal combat, that there was not going to be any interference. A lot of people are hanging their hat on that, and that's why they hated it so much. And I actually forgot about that, if we're being honest. I forgot what the rules to tribal combat was. I was not paying attention. So that is bothersome. But it's literally the only thing that is not cliche, that doesn't make sense. That's stupid. If Jimmy, let's look at some of the other options. Let's say that Jimmy was jealous of Jay, which seems to be the second favorite. That Jimmy is like, it should have been me. I should be the tribal chief. Okay, well then it reverses what they said before the Money in the Bank match, which is that neither one of them are interested in being the tribal chief. Now, Jay has already gone back on that. But we also established 3 years ago that Jay wanted to be the one when he said, why can't it be me? During the first feud with Roman, he was like, why can't it be me that take care of everybody? Why can't I do it? So we got some waffling right there. But if Jimmy wants to fight for the tribal chiefdom or whatever, so now we've got Jimmy and Jay against each other because they both want to be the tribal chief. And that's fine, I guess, but it's kind of cliche. It should have been me. I don't think people can really sink their teeth into that. The only other option than that is for Jimmy to return to Roman. And since Jimmy was the one who led the rebellion against Roman, that wouldn't make any sense. So the only one that kind of puts Jimmy in the position of being sort of a gray area is that he betrays Jay, but thinks he's doing it for Jay's own good. He's doing it because Jay doesn't realize that he's going to become, a tyrannical tribal chief, just like Roman is. Now, that clearly is him not having faith in his brother, that his brother can handle the power and the authority of being the tribal chief. Which, of course, Jay could have responded like, you didn't trust me, yada, yada, yada. Or maybe, Jimmy saying that he didn't really trust Jay to, be able to withstand that, or whatever the case may be. I get it. But to me, this one makes the most sense. It's the one that tries to keep the Usos together, or at least creates static between the two of them that's not insurmountable. Like this isn't something that is going to irrevocably break the Usos. It's something that, Jimmy made an executive decision that probably wasn't the smartest decision, that he doesn't really regret, but kind of does regret, that Jay can possibly understand, that was seeds planted throughout the story, where, you got Roman and I think Paul and stuff saying like, you sound just like a tribal chief. And they were saying this stuff leading up to the match. Jay is, giving Jimmy orders like, you out, and this kind of stuff. So there was a lot of seeds that were planted that would make this make sense. But I think for a lot of people, there was no explanation that would have worked, because every explanation they would have seen as he should have just lost the belt to Cody and we shouldn't be doing this. Which, if you're stuck in April, then I can't do nothing for you. It's just, you're stuck in April. To me, Cody is, probably more over now than he was then. And that situation is done. We'll be revisiting the Cody angle in a minute. But they're not rushing Jimmy and Jay fighting. Instead, they're trying to lay the groundwork for there to be a schism between Jimmy and Jay, but for it not to be insurmountable. So the next step is for Jimmy to say, look, if you're mad at me, you don't want to speak to me, you hate me, whatever, okay. If you want to kick me in the face, go for it. And he's standing there, and Jay considers it. Jay thinks about it, and instead he just turns his back on Jimmy. So Jimmy kind of walks like he's trying to walk in front of Jay, and Jay just continues turning his back and looking away from him. And so Jimmy just leaves the ring, and he's walking up the ramp. At this point, Roman starts busting out laughing. He's saying that he told Jay this was going to happen, that Jimmy was always the one trying to hold him down. And this whole time for 3 years has always been about him, that Jay needs to acknowledge him. This led to the fight between Jay, Roman, and Solo. And Jimmy doesn't come help. He said he did all this to help Jay. He loves Jay, yada, yada, yada. But he didn't come help. Interesting plot point right there. Jay ends up fighting Roman and Solo off. Then he calls for Jimmy to come back. Jimmy turns around. He's coming back. Jay has his arms open like he's going to hug him, and he kicks Jimmy in the face. At this point, Jay quits the bloodline again, quits WWE, and leaves. And he's out. He's taken off. And the crowd is firmly behind Jay. They're chanting for him. And I guess it really didn't sit in that he just quit. So we leave Jimmy down. Jimmy is down. Roman's down. Solo's down. And Jay is disappearing into the people. Okay, so they're still positioning Jay as being the superhero in this situation. He got his revenge on Jimmy. Not anything more than that. He didn't, hit him with a chair or anything like that. But he got his lick back. And then he decided he was done. So now we've got questions for next week. The question for next week is, what now? Jimmy has lost his brother because he betrayed him. But so what's Jimmy's next move? He got kicked in the face by Jay. Roman and Solo they got Jay out of their hair, but now they still have to deal with Jimmy. So the question now is, of course, what is going on between Roman and Jimmy, or Solo and Jimmy? How are we going to get this thing to work? And it's unknown whether Roman's going to be on the show next week. But I'm guessing, and this is typically what they do, is they're probably going to put the bulk of the story on Jimmy and Paul Heyman. Now, a lot of people have recognized, rightly so, that Paul has been the sort of puppet master for this whole ordeal. Noted, Roman assumed that Paul had spoken to Jimmy. Roman assumed that Jimmy was coming back. And he said this in talking to Paul, and like, where's Jimmy? Like, we're out here, where's Jimmy? Like, you're supposed to handle that. You're supposed to be in touch with him. And Paul had been in touch with Jimmy. So that means he did call him. So we're in a position where Heyman could possibly be the puppeteer behind the whole thing, which is what Jay believes. Jay believes that all of this is the wise man's fault. That, Paul is the devil whispering in Roman's ear, and now he's whispering in his brother's ear too, that being Solo, and also whispering in Jimmy's ear. And that could be revealed later on, that this is what's going to occur. But right now, they're too busy fighting each other to really pay any attention to Paul. Jay is paying attention to Paul, but everybody else is too busy trying to fight for the title or fighting for their relationship with each other or their duty in terms of Solo. He got this duty to protect Roman and all this kind of stuff. They're not paying attention to Paul's machinations. So I'm guessing next week we're going to begin with Jimmy now focusing on Paul. as Paul comes out there and talks or whatever, they're probably going to have Jimmy and Paul do a segment where they're going to lay the groundwork for Jimmy's arc. Having Jay taken out of the story allows you to do more with Jimmy now. And that makes sense because, too many characters, you'll clutter the thing. Too many ingredients in the stew. So you take Jay out, and who knows for how long he'll be taken out of the story. It probably won't be long, probably a month or so. So then you have an opportunity to build Jimmy, build his angle, that he is not going to side with Roman. And maybe Paul tries to entice him to return, which makes sense in terms of this is how the bloodline works. Paul repeatedly tried to entice Jay to return, repeatedly. We're going to see probably a similar thing here, where it's going to end up with maybe Jimmy and Solo fighting each other. And that's where we're going to get the big spoiler of Rikishi. Somebody spoiled that Rikishi is supposed to be a referee at Payback, which everybody assumed was going to be Jimmy versus Jay. It could possibly be Jimmy versus Solo, and Rikishi is going to be the referee. Or that it could be Jimmy versus Roman, and Rikishi's going to be the referee, or whatever the case may be. So that led a lot of people to believe that Rikishi is going to be involved tonight, but he wasn't. So maybe it'll be in the next couple of weeks. We'll see Rikishi finally show up. And maybe Rikishi will be the one who says, I told Jimmy to do what he did, or whatever the case may be. But until then, we don't know. So looking at the storyline for now, what Jimmy did was not good, but understandable if the goal is to keep the Usos together, prevent Jay from becoming like Roman. But of course, you leave Roman in the position that he was in. So now you still have to deal with Roman, So you prevented Jay from becoming Roman, but Roman's still Roman, And again, it's a dropped ball because Jimmy didn't mention at all Roman and Paul have corrupted their little brother, Like that would have been, I think that the one thing that would have tied everything together is as he's explaining to Jay, I don't want this for you. Look at what it happened to Solo. Like, look at Solo. He's not like us. He's not a twin. And look at what happens to him when he gets into Roman's orbit. He gets a little taste of power, a little taste of authority. And look at how he's behaving. Look at how he's acting. Look at him. He's fighting. You two are fighting each other. If he was playing the big brother role, that would have been his consideration, would have been for both of his little brothers. And that's the position that we've put him in at this point, because we've already established that he's like 10 minutes older than Jay. So he's Jay's big brother, quote unquote, even though they're the same age. But he's also Solo's big brother. Jay and Solo have a contentious relationship. If Jimmy was going to be there playing the big brother role, he should say, Roman got you guys fighting each other. You fighting your little brother. And you even got me attacking my brother. So the revelation should have been that Jay, who is a guy who has always felt this duty to his family, is now at war with his own family. And that's something that we could have had Jimmy bring to the table instead of it should have been me. Because it's like, okay, where do you go from that? Like, why should it have been Jimmy? Why? Besides, I think the idea of Jimmy being jealous, again, is very cliche. I don't like it. Because it's very one-dimensional. At least here, we have multiple dimensions. We got Jimmy doing something that he probably shouldn't have done, and we don't like him for that. But we also can appreciate how sometimes you do have to protect people from themselves. The only problem I have here is it seems that he's only interested in protecting Jay. It's like, fuck, Solo is there too, So hopefully they'll eventually make that part of the story, stronger. I won't say it doesn't make sense. It does make sense. It just needs to be a stronger foundation to that angle. Jay being frustrated with the constant betrayals and the backstabbing, not being able to trust anybody in his own family, Jimmy not believing in him, which we established the first time when Jimmy was the one who didn't want Jay to be the right-hand man. We get that. Jay needing to take a break to get away from all this stress and this anxiety is fine. That's good. They're still kind of telling the story with Roman and Solo. They're still, planting the seeds there for them to eventually fight each other, or for Solo to eventually break loose, which is why I think Jimmy needs to be the catalyst for Solo to flip, because he was the catalyst for Jay to flip, and that makes sense. Again, big brother, you give the advice, you give the tough love. He should step in with Solo and say, I'm not going to fight you like Jay did. That's off the table. I will never fight my brother. And then he starts working on Solo verbally, trying to get him to understand how Roman is manipulating him, bringing in the dad and everything to talk this thing out, or to try to talk it out, which of course leads to the eventual challenge from Solo to fight. And then maybe Jimmy waffles on the idea and he doesn't want to fight, similar to, Brett and Owen, And we leave it at that. You can even have Solo talk and say, how he watched the Usos when he was younger, saying that was going to be him one day. And, he's always been in their shadow, yada, yada, yada. That's why he doesn't go by the name Uso, or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of different things you could do there between Solo and Jimmy to make this thing stronger. But I think there's still plenty of gas in the story. It's just about how you handle it, and about how much you give away in a specific time frame. They're doing a good job of asking questions every week. Now, this week's question was, why did Jimmy do what he did? You got the answer to that question. It's not because he's rejoining the bloodline, which would have been very cliche and stupid. And it's not because he himself wants to be the tribal chief. He did it because he was protecting his brother from this, immaterial corruption power. Okay. Next week is, what now that Jay has taken off? What do we do now? And that's going to be interesting. So we still got that right there. And I'm guessing they're going to do probably a lengthy Jimmy Uso Paul segment where we're going to flesh out that a little bit more. And maybe it's going to be Paul who is going to drop the old Jimmy is jealous. Jimmy wants to be the tribal chief too, this kind of thing, which will take it in the direction that some people wanted to go in. But once again, I think this is one of those things where if you're stuck in April with Cody losing, then nothing will do. No answer will do. For people who have been following the story, you might be like, all right, this is kind of a slow part of the story because it's clearly not building to an Usos match yet. But eventually we're going to get there. And we know that from outside stuff that they do want to wrestle each other at WrestleMania. But WrestleMania is in April and it's not even September. It's early August. How do we get there? So we got months to build up the animosity between Jimmy and Jay, and we've already started it. We've already started the animosity with Jimmy betraying Jay. So how do we build upon it that will get us to April? The idea that Jay's going to be gone for the rest of the year, I don't think they have the discipline to take him out for the rest of the year. That means he'll be off for the next 4 months. And for him to be gone for 4 months in this story is crazy. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Jimmy holding this story down for 4 months by himself, I don't know about that, because we know that Roman is hurt. So we don't know if Roman is well enough to wrestle anytime soon. But you still have Solo. So I think you probably will end up having Roman and Solo. Solo and Jimmy maybe, with Paul being sort of the instigator, and that being the sort of the C feud in this thing. So that could possibly happen. So there's a lot of different options that you got here. All in all, for SmackDown, though, things happened. Things occurred. I still question why, certain people were brought back. There's people who have been re-signed to WWE that have not wrestled on television, that have not made an appearance, or they do make appearances, they just lose. They just get, kicked in the balls, and that's it. You know, there's no plan for building any new stars. They're relying a lot on the Usos and Roman to build these shows, which is fine because the shows are doing very well, you know, with Roman and the Usos on top. And Raw is not struggling with Cody on top. So it seems to be working fine, but there's no vision for the future. There's no, you know, even when it comes to the United States title, they just gave it to Ray rather than, you know, trying to build somebody else. Which my only guess is that hopefully somebody's going to betray Rey Mysterio. Gunther seems to be the only guy that they're pushing in Dominic in terms of future stars. Rhea Ripley is already a star. Io, she's still kind of firmly behind Bayley. She's not breaking out yet. She's the champion, but she hasn't had a breakout moment yet. So we're still waiting. You know, we're in a holding pattern, but we should be moving forward a little bit at a crisper pace than this. But this, I think, what happens when you have longer matches on the show. You know, you just have long matches. So there's, you know, while some storyline stuff, again, the Bloodline did their thing, but and Edge and Sheamus, they did a really good job. But a lot of other storylines are kind of waffling on SmackDown, and it's showing that they're really, really, really leaving people to rely on the Bloodline story to carry this show because they're not doing much with anybody else. And that's very unfortunate because this is a 2-hour show. And it's even worse on Raw, for Christ's sake. It's even worse on Raw. All right. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.